New York's classic rock, Q1043.
When Tony Soprano lay down on that safe house mattress in the final episodes, rifle across his chest, you could see it in his eyes. The man who fancied himself a general had no army left. Because here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. Tony didn't lose the war with New York because New York was bigger. He lost it because one by one, he personally removed every single soldier who could have won it for him. He didn't get outgunned. He cleaned house on himself. Let's set the table. By season 6, the DeMeo crime family, Tony's family, is at war with the Lupertazis of New York. Phil Leotardo is running the show over there, and Phil hates Tony the way a man hates a stain on a new suit.
Historically, Carmine always said the Sopranos are nothing more than a glorified crew.
New York has 200 soldiers. Jersey has a glorified crew. That's not me being dramatic. That's what the show itself keeps telling you.
I'm gonna bunk down here.
Where the fuck I gotta be?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay.
When it's finally time to go to the mattresses, Tony is hiding in a safe house surrounded by guys whose names you barely know.
Phil Leotardo. Calls were made to Zips.
They're coming over from Naples.
The hit on Phil gets botched so badly that the Italian hitmen kill the wrong man entirely. Phil's mistress's father and his daughter along with him. 2 innocent people dead and Phil still breathing. Now here's the thing. Tony didn't start with a weak bench. Not even close. Over 7 seasons, he had access to some of the most violent, capable, fearless earners in the entire show. Richie Aprile, Ralph Cifaretto, Feech Lamanna, Tony Blundetto, Christopher Moltisanti. 5 wrecking balls. 5 guys who, on their worst day, would have put the fear of God into Phil Leotardo's crew. By the time the war starts, every single one of them is dead. And Tony killed, or greenlit the killing, of 4 out of 5. So the question isn't whether Tony could have won the war. The question is, did Tony lose the war the day he decided he'd rather be comfortable than dangerous? Let's walk through the bodies, because the pattern here is the point.
You 1,000% sure it was Richie Aprile driving that car?
Richie Aprile, old school, came out of prison harder than he went in. The kind of guy who'd run a man over with a car, back up, and do it again for emphasis.
My fucking dinner on the table and keep your mouth shut.
Will you shut up?
Richie dies at his sister Janice's kitchen table over a punch in the mouth. Tony didn't pull that trigger, but make no mistake, if Janice hadn't gotten there first, Tony was going to.
Jesus Christ, you did it. You cooked that fucking horse alive.
Ralph Cifaretto, a sociopath, sure, but also one of the biggest earners the Jersey family ever had. The Esplanade scam alone was printing money. Ralph dies in his own kitchen because Tony thinks Ralph killed a horse.
I came to ask for my game back.
It's my uncle's game now, Feech.
Feech Lamanna, fresh out of a 20-year bid. Old? Yes. Disrespectful? Absolutely. But the man had the kind of old country menace you can't teach. Tony doesn't whack Feech. He does something almost worse.
Supervisor Curran, parole board.
He sets him up on a parole violation and ships him back to prison to die.
This Blundetto asshole went off the reservation.
Tony Blundetto, his own cousin, the guy he grew up with. Tony puts a shotgun round through his face on a dark porch rather than hand him over to New York. One decision, one trigger pull, one cousin gone.
You know the baby's car seat? She would have been dead, Caitlin.
And then there's Christopher. Oh, Christopher. The kid who is supposed to be the future. Tony suffocates him in a crashed car on the side of the road because a tree branch came through the baby seat. 5 men, 5 coffins. 4 of them signed, sealed, and delivered by Tony himself. And here's where it gets interesting, because every single one of those killings made perfect sense in the moment. Richie was plotting a coup. Ralph was a liability. Feech was a headache. Tony B brought the heat. Chrissy was a junkie with a loose mouth. Every single one was rational, and every single one was a catastrophe. Now picture the war room in season 6. Actually picture it. Who's standing next to Tony?
The other night, he's been playing both sides of the fence.
Paulie Walnuts, a 60-something capo who, and let's be honest here, was flirting so hard with New York during the war, he practically left his number on their fridge.
Called the hospital. They wouldn't give no info on Sil.
Silvio, loyal, smart, but a consigliere, not a soldier, and he takes a coma-inducing bullet the moment the shooting starts. Bobby Bacala, big-hearted, capable, and the first guy to die when the war goes hot. And a rotating cast of guys whose names you have to squint to remember. Now picture that same war room with Christopher Moltisanti in it. Drug-free Chris, Point Man Chris, the kid who put Sean Gismonti down under fire. The kid who lifted a soccer coach's dog right out of the man's house and walked it back the next day with a smile, just so the coach knew how close the mob could get. Intimidation without a single punch thrown. That's a rare skill. Put Ralph Cifaretto in that room. The guy hated New York, hated Johnny Sack, hated Phil, burned every bridge he ever had over there. Ralph was never going to defect. New York was where he'd get killed.
Tony, right?
Put Tony Blundetto in that room, the man who took 2 New York-made guys out by himself in one afternoon. Yeah, it started the war, but in a war, that's exactly the kind of animal you want off the leash.
You've been away 20 fucking years.
Put Feech LaManna in that room, a man who did 2 decades in a cage and came out meaner. You don't need him to run the family. You need him to scare people, and Feech scared people by breathing. Here's the quotable moment, the thing I want you to sit with. Tony spent 7 years building a family for peacetime and then walked into a war. He promoted earners, he buried killers, and when the killers were gone, the earners ran for the hills. Now, and this is important, I'm not going to sit here and pretend Tony had easy choices. He didn't.
I don't want him around my kids.
Who, Richie?
Richie was absolutely plotting to kill him. Ralph was an unstable lightning rod. Feech would never have taken orders from a man he remembered as a kid. Tony B brought a freight train of heat down on the family by acting alone. Chrissy was a walking relapse. All true, every word of it. But here's the deeper cut. Tony's problem wasn't that he killed dangerous men. Tony's problem was that he couldn't lead them. He saw every strong personality as a threat to his chair instead of a weapon for his crew. Stalin did the exact same thing, by the way. Purged his best generals in the 30s, and then got caught with his pants down when Hitler came knocking in 41. Authoritarian regimes eat their own. The mob is no different. A real boss, the kind Tony kept telling himself he was, finds a way to keep the wolves in the pack pointed outward.
Whatever happened to Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type?
Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type, remember? Tony loved that image. He just couldn't live it. Instead, every time a dangerous man got too close to the throne, Tony flinched. And in our thing, flinching is fatal. Not right away, not in one episode, but one body at a time, over 7 years, until you look up and realize you're lying on a safe house bed, and the only guys left to guard your sleep are men whose names you barely know. That's not a war you lose in a single afternoon. That's a war you lose in slow motion, over a decade, one rational decision at a time. Go back to that safe house. Really look at it this time. Tony's on the mattress. The rifle is across his chest. The men in the next room are strangers. His consigliere is in a coma. His brother-in-law is dead in a hobby shop, shot between the model trains. His nephew is in a grave Tony dug himself. His cousin is gone. His mentors are gone. His earners have scattered. And in that single shot, the one where Tony closes his eyes and tries to sleep, David Chase is telling you everything you need to know. This is the real ending. Not the diner, not the onion rings, not the cut to black. The ending is a man who spent his whole career clearing the deck of anyone who might threaten him, and who finally succeeded so completely that when the real threat came, there was nobody left to stand in front of him. Tony Soprano didn't get outplayed by New York. Tony Soprano got outplayed by Tony Soprano years ago in Richie's kitchen, in Ralph's hallway, in Tony B's doorway, on the side of the road with Chris. He won every one of those fights, and he lost the only one that mattered. Tony Soprano built an empire out of dangerous men, and then spent his whole life proving he was more dangerous than any of them. He was right, and it killed him. So here's my question for you, and I actually want to hear this one in the comments. If you had to pick one guy, Richie, Ralph, Feech, Tony B, or Chrissy, to bring back for the New York War, who are you putting in that safe house next to Tony? And more importantly, who do you think would have actually stayed loyal when the bullets started flying? Drop your pick below. I read every one. And if this hit, there's a companion piece I did on why Polly Walnuts may have been flirting harder with New York than anyone wants to admit. It's on screen right now. I'll see you there.
Look at this. The family of early man.